you could actually just, put them here.
I can put them on the computer?
Sure.
Great, that's what I'm gonna do. And I don't need to, oh, it's got big pickup. And I have a loud voice.
And then we can move it,
Right,
and we'll tell you if it's.
okay. Great. Me, 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 me. We're great.
Hello and welcome. I feel like we should wait for Rabbi Alex. He's here in the building. What do you think? Shall we just give him a few minutes? Yes, you guys talk. I'm talking. For those of you who are new to our sanctuary, I wanted to point out over there is the broken Jewish star, and inside of it is a very famous poem by a very young woman who wrote, "I wish these things would never end. The wind, the water, about nature." And she parachuted into Yugoslavia to fight the Nazis. They found her, they tortured her, and she died. But her words are here on our wall. This is our Holocaust memorial, and we have 5 or 6 names there of my husband Daniel's family that we don't know where they died, but we have their names here. And now we have Rabbi Alex. All right. We'll get going. Is that all right then? Thank you for all of you who have come here. And welcome to Congregation Shir Shalom. And is this really our 6th season? I believe that in the spring of 2019, Rabbi Alex asked me to host a kind of poetry, literary event in honor of she was our cantor Susan Whaley, and she died in the flight of 3407. And it was 10 years, and I guess we did this event. I can't really remember it, but it was very emotional for me, and then we just kind of carried on somehow, and here we are all these years later. So I wish to thank Rabbi Alex for his initiative and his rich imagination. Thank you to Congregation Shir Shalom and the great team that is led by wherever she is, Executive Director Joanne. She's always around, no matter where she is. We all exist because of your help and support. So tonight we have wonderful featured readers, some who have been around for a while. So we even have a repeat, yes, repeat offender in Celeste. I also want to mention that at the Buffalo Corner we have a most patient and helpful tech support in my husband, alone and solo, dealing with my and then, helping out. So please thank him, because it wouldn't exist otherwise. So now it is my pleasure to invite the multi-talented Rabbi Alex to say a few words, perhaps a Shechehiano, and to read a few poems, please.
Well, thank you, Ganila and Dan. This is really a labor of love. It is dedicated to Cantor Susan Whaley, who just had a soaring spirit. I only knew her about 7 months before the flight. And right before she left, like so many people, I think she said, "I think we'll get coffee as soon as I'm back." Yeah, I heard that from countless people. Welcome to our newly designed sanctuary. And actually, you are the first group to witness our basically done new windows. And I forgive me that we're still under construction, but we're trying to get ready for our Jewish High Holy Days that are in just a couple weeks. And we had these windows over here. Originally, when they were designed in 1970, they were supposed to be stained glass. And they ran out of money for that. And then they put what they could up there. And it got grayer and darker over time. So our board of directors and synagogue president Todd Sugarman said, why don't we brighten it up? And it really does change so much. A lot of times we're here and it's dark, because most of our services are at night. But it really adds so much warmth. So it's great to just have the Buffalo Corner be the starting point. And thank you, and forgive all the construction over here. I think by tomorrow it'll be gone, but you get the first witness of this glorious light on one of the nicest days that we've had. All right, I have a couple of poems. I read this in synagogue, and a couple of parents really related to it. It's called Toast. Let the bread left in the toaster burn. The cracked egg that slid into the cracks between the burners stay caked into the sheet iron. The dirty black socks behind the closet door lie balled up. The stack of dishes from last night's dinner remain lined with grease. The dust balls collected in the vestibule blow across the floor. That's just the kind of day, week, year it's been. Even my mother couldn't get me to clean it up. Even God. I'm sure that's how they, the eternal spirit of the universe, felt when, after putting everything carefully in place, Adam and Eve had to go ahead and eat that piece of fruit. Sometimes the world can flood, the sun can hide behind the clouds, and nothing you had on your list of things to do can get done. Yet you and the whole rest of the world will be okay. Even so, if none of those other things get done by next Tuesday, or the Tuesday after that, and on until the end of the world, or at least until I have the energy to stand up and start cleaning my room. I have one more. I wrote this right before services on Friday. It's called Address Unknown. Somewhere in the world, a person keeps the keys to the nuclear submarine. Pacing the narrow corridors, knowing the exact numbers of steps, the click of each door, the obstacles along the path, the timing to the second to arrive at the place the key enters. And then to watch in their mind's eye how it would turn, followed by the sound, a crashing of waves released into a deep, everlasting silence. What does it mean to hold that level of responsibility, not just for yourself, but for the world? Thank you, whoever you are. I say with the utmost gratitude, I am glad not to be you. enjoy your poetry. I'll be back. I just have the wedding couple. I had a couple extra questions, but enjoy.
Thank you, Rabbi Alex. And you know, here, if you see, some of us will do this, that we don't applaud in the sanctuary, but we do this with the hands. So if you saw that, that's why it's just a thing. So, tonight it is my immense pleasure to welcome back a featured reader, my friend, fellow poet, Celeste Lawson. Looking at a bio focused solely on her writing, I was facing 2 single-spaced pages and thought instantly of the sound of music. Maria, you know, the bars of that Maria song came to mind. How do I solve this problem? I cannot stand here and read 2 pages single-spaced. You know, it won't be done by midnight. So I hope you don't mind that I lifted a few important notes from the song. And the song matters here because Celeste is a poet who came to the world of poetry in response to her love and experience with dance and music. Experiences that contributed to the texture and tone of her writing. And for many years, she received artist grants to support her work in the recreation of ancient dances rooted in the traditions of North Africa and the Middle East as part of special dance projects here in Western New York. She's recognized for creating performance art using original poetry and inspiration from well-known literary works. Her writing was included in the 2021 collection of letters to Vice President Kamala Harris. She published a collection of poems entitled, I Was Born This Way. Don't we all know what that means? I was born this way, with this accent. You know what I mean? It's just, I loved it. She traveled to Beijing, China, as a Western New York delegate to the UN World Conference of Women. And you were with? Yeah, you have to tell us a little bit, maybe if you have a minute. She has been recognized as an Erie County's poet, and she continues her work for the stage, combining text, music, and dance, as in typography of women about the crime of sexual trafficking. Celeste invited me to be an actor in this project. Little did we know that after months and months of rehearsing, the pandemic would close down the stage. We were set to produce this at Buff State in their big auditorium, but it didn't happen. And then Celeste, not giving up, she chose to make a video out of it. And for me, it was a fabulous experience to be a small part of this production. So please welcome poet and community activist, Celeste Lawson. Daniel, can you help with your name probably a little lower?
If I just do this, are we okay? Thank you. Good to see everyone. Thank you, Gunilla, for the invitation. And thank you, Dan, for helping us poets make it happen. I would like to read some poems commemoratively because we seem to be sort of having that theme. And I'm going to read a poem about a friend of ours who we lost some years ago. Some of you may know her, Jimmy Gilliam, who was an extraordinary poet. And September 25th will be her anniversary. My mom's birthday is September 6th, and she would have been 95. And she transitioned June 2022. And Ricky Zuckerman posted something about being emotionally, I guess, strained or distressed because we're losing so many friends and family, it seems like. So I'm going to read a couple of poems sort of in that ilk. The first one is called Pondering the Loss of Friends. And for those of you who may have heard it before, I appreciate your indulgence. I'm exhausted from death. Loss of oxygen and movement makes fatigue, makes heaviness, makes bending over and bleeding the only solution, makes tears dry and be salty because there are too many, makes me wonder why there is time and why there is not enough of it, makes me wish there was no such thing as sleep, why I never want to get out of bed, don't want to walk where footsteps no longer tread, makes me struggle to keep my eyes open, keep looking for bodies that are no longer upright, listening for sounds that are only silence now. My own silence is confused, trying to understand inevitability. It is any moment now, and it is now, and nobody knows what to do. It is in the distance, some sound, but it is constant. It is a beat, a rhythm barely audible, but it is constant. Losing Jimmy. Had I known you sooner, maybe I would have brushed your hair and you braided mine, pretended to be fine ladies having tea with fancy friends, maybe cover a dirt road with leaves pulled from red maples, created a carpet that would lead us to a magic castle filled with sweets, maybe just laugh at the mess we made. Had I known you sooner, perhaps I would have learned to say more with less struggle, create ideas that sing and dance, swagger with words, transform lines on a page into waves of feeling. Had I known you sooner, perhaps I could carry sadness in my pocket, but my anguish is rampant, an unapologetic weight of grief that dares me to say goodbye, to see you only as evening primrose, the flesh of you evaporated into night blooms. Had I known you sooner, perhaps my disbelief could be contained in recollections, avoiding spaces once occupied by your words of encouragement. Perhaps it would be easier for my sorrow to be quelled with your melody, for me to say, wait, come back, I've something to tell you, to watch you arms outstretched, blow kisses and become the sky. Adieu, 3901. 3901 was the address of my mom's condo. So that's why I say that, goodbye to that. And I was there when everything had moved out and the cleanup team was coming in. Such solitude, eerie and engulfing silence in this space, once occupied by a lifelong dream, security, independence. The journey was so long to finally arrive at this moment. My eyes trace scuff marks across the floor, telltale marks of wheelchair treads printed by miscalculated navigations. Baseboard scratched out of the story of a rookie in the driver's seat. damaged floors, soon to be refinished, bumpy fits and start polished to a new sheen. These walls witness life slip from freedom and relief to infirm and fear. These walls heard prayers, conversations with God imploring recovery, safety for children, second chances, daily questions, why me, why now? This was a space of traditions, holiday dinners, family gatherings, tea parties, birthday parties amid a clutter of tchotchke memories, canvases painted with colorful new inspirations. The space is empty now. No exhales of ungranted wishes in the air, only rooms being prepped for a new life. Walls will be painted, their secrets sealed inside, but if they could talk, they would tell the story of life on a roller coaster, a life fighting for love and a desire to be beautiful, to be regarded and respected, to live her dream delayed, but ending too soon. Jeffie Mae Wright, my grandmother. I was out of the country when she passed away, so I wasn't able to spend any final times with her. I wish you were here, even in your pale gray frailty. I need to hug you and cry, to ask forgiveness for my truculent youth, for being afraid to help you lessen your tight grip on life that slips no matter what. We never had a chance to embrace your journey, to sit and smile when there was nothing left but slender strands between us. Your leaving was nothing like an old friend or final wear of a favorite shirt worn to unmendable fray. Only a dark stream of distress hissed and slithered through wires, crossing unfamiliar words with silence through skin. You set sail alone. I was lost at sea. That night, I nearly drowned, and still there's water in my lungs. This one is called The Young Jameson. Excuse me. Some of you may know Alan Jameson, who's an artist, photographer, teacher, and he lost his son some years ago in an automobile accident. He was only maybe 19 years old. But there was a lot happening at that time, and I wrote this poem thinking about that loss and the loss of many young warriors through the Native experience and other experiences. What is that sound, I ask? A war cry, you said, slicing through the morning. But that is not the sound I heard. I heard a youthful throat caterwaul for joy and peace. What bird is that, I ask? An eagle, you said, soaring high, sharp-eyed and stalking. But that is not the bird I saw. I saw a young falcon learning to fly, gliding along the river's edge, teasing fish and chasing frogs. What drum is that, I ask? A marching drum, you said, calling warriors to the circle, ready for the hunt. But that is not the drum I heard. I heard the deep timbre of turtle shell and animal skin thumping slowly and sadly, the rhythm of an unfinished odyssey and a dance ending too soon. Okay. I went to a workshop a number of years ago, well, not a number, but a few years ago when they had Charles Birchfield's work on display in the Birchfield Penny, Heat Waves. And one of the things that happened was some poets, led by another poet, Karen Lewis, we traveled around and looked at Birchfield paintings and made notes about it. And I made a series of poems, based on two things. One, I learned that Charles Birchfield had his own language. He created his own shorthand, which was interesting. There were volumes and volumes. And the other thing is that he was struggling with his own identity, his own sexual identity. And it showed up in some of these paintings, which were really quite beautiful, but complex, as was his language. So these two poems I'll read are from a series that he calls The Steadfast Leaf. Mine is called The Constant Leaf. His painting is The Steadfast Leaf that he made in 1960. Transformation as sunrise, transition as twilight, the swift stride of nature's gallop fields, cool poems of winter, the succession of seasons. Bare branches bring peace to the emptiness. A single bloom declares its rite of passage. It's not too late for me to blossom alongside this intrepid stalk of beauty that did not succumb to moodiness. Brooding that often quelled passion, and its flame dimmed the lantern, no longer a beacon for my heart. Scribbling weariness and elation, cast spells, painted shadows, truth told behind lies, begged to be discovered, and then memorialized in the flowers. The Steadfast Leaf, second one. A life in notes, exclamation points and dashes, monochromatic, riddles with questions but no answers, an icy stare. Nature's frost-bitten revenge on time, a canvas stained with blemishes of salt. Why not the red of Menses? Why only the residue of indecision? Why so impossible to lay seamless the androgyny? Note the arches poised and softly opaque, deliberately faded with wishful strokes. Nostalgia beckons across the landscape, its allure persistent, daring just one step over the threshold. His soul scarred, but not for sale. His agony is chronicled subtext, pages with commas between moments, joy in lowercase letters. Branches become leafless twigs, deeply rooted despite the wind. They will learn to subsist on his visions and be satisfied. They all hunger, but I do not. Where am I in terms of time? Okay. Okay. Somebody tell me. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read a poem when, and it'll be my last poem. When Gunilla talked about traveling to China and about the Topography Project, I was there with another group, a Western New York delegation, and we talked about helping women who were primarily from countries where educating women was not allowed or encouraged. And so we wanted to teach reading and writing and things like that through the cultural arts. And one of the things that I learned was that these women had come from well over 100 countries. And some of these women left their homes and walked for months to get there so that they could be heard and commune and fellowship with other women and share stories and perhaps discover solutions. So I wrote a poem about that, and I used this poem as the closing of the Topography of Women I'm Not Invisible project, and which Gunilla was a part of. And you should come and read your verse. Yeah, I'll read it, and then when you get to your verse, you read it. Read your verse. Your line here, right, this is your verse, and then we'll do the ending together as we did. Okay, so, Beijing Miles. Far corners of the world join together at the fingertips, the heartbeats and the songs. Overflowing breasts lactate courage, feeding nations one mouth at a time across seas and deserts. Burned in Alexandria, in Salem, in India, mightier than the phoenix we rise, our shadowed eclipsing the sun on every continent.
Waylaid by contracts, Congress, and contrived acts blamed on God, we walked miles to be there.
We walk miles to be there and hold each other. We walk miles to be there, share stories, secrets. We walk miles to wipe tears and smiles. We walk miles to avenge and to heal, to toe the line, cut the bait, aim the arrow, shoot the gun, read the book, dance the dance, write the poem, sing the song. We walk miles to be seen and be heard. We walk miles to say yes and say no, to come out, to go in, to give away, break away, make a way, to build and to destroy. And when we got there, we stood tall, every shape, size, and hue, a brightly colored montage of womanhood stretching across God's glory. We stood together, womb to womb, dream to dream, anguish to anguish, strength to strength, knowing we survived the Holocaust, the press, the church, schools of thought, institutionalized hate, and the laws of mankind. You should read that again as your line.
We stood together, womb to womb, dream to dream, anguish to anguish, strength to strength, knowing we survived the Holocaust, the press, the church, schools of thought, institutionalized hate, and the laws of mankind.
There's no such thing as half a woman. With only a handful of clay, we make a hut. A spoonful of grain, we make a meal. One drop of water, we quench your thirst. A night of love, we make a king, halt a war, launch a ship, seize a throne, overturn governments. We'll read this together. We want you to exhale, breathe us in, fill your lungs with our exaltation, exaltation for life. We want you to hear our anthem, equality and peace, equality and peace on earth, peace on earth, we sing. Thank you. Thank you. I want you to acknowledge this lady over here because I didn't call on her because she might get me, but this is a wonderful actor, poet, and she was also in the production of Bernice Turner, and we sang one of her verses too. So you see her name somewhere, you should go. It's a great program. Thank you all. Yeah, I just want to knock it down.
Wow, thank you, Celeste. I never thought I would read those lines again. I had a fantastic experience being part of this major project, and you can see the video is out there. I think you can watch it. Yeah, it was just a phenomenon. I was so glad you invited me, and I was so totally anxious and thought I would just screw everything up. But I think in the end it was all right. So thank you, Celeste. And now I would like to introduce our second featured reader, Jonathan Cohen, who is somebody who grew up here. I think many of you are here to support and hear him read. He grew up here in Buffalo. He was born and raised here in Buffalo. He attended Nichols School and Amherst High School and graduated with distinction in history, from Kenyon College. Before finding a career in management consulting, he held numerous jobs in the Queen City of the Great Lakes. Zoo concession stand worker, butcher's helper, taxi driver, disc jockey, and short order cook. It's Buffalo, right? You puzzle together an economy. He has recently returned to an early interest in poetry. His writing can be found in the Orchard, Image, Salt, and the Cider Press Review. One I-70, is that how you say it? I have a poem in I-70 Review, Stone, Canoe, Journal, and others. A finalist for the 2024 Ralph Angel Poetry Prize. His first book, Work Songs, forthcoming from Finishing Line Press, is inspired by his Buffalo experience. We have a lot of writers here inspired by the Buffalo experience. Now, he traveled all the way from Norwalk, Connecticut, to join us here at the Buffalo Corner tonight. Thank you. Please welcome Jonathan Cohen.
Thank you, Gunilla, and Rabbi Alex, if you're out there, for inviting me to this wonderful gathering. Buffalo Corner is a wonderful forum, and it's a privilege to be here and to share the microphone with you, Celeste, who read so beautifully. Thank you. Thanks to friends and family in the audience and on Zoom. It's great to have your support. Special hello to my wife, Clara, who's on Zoom. Greetings, sweetheart. And my daughter, Mirabelle, and my great friends, John and Jim. It's wonderful to have everybody involved. Special thanks to my good friend, Mark Goldman, who can't be here tonight due to a conflict, but I think many of you know, maybe everyone knows Mark is an impresario extraordinaire, and look out, he's cooking up more things for the two of us down the road. Did he? I'm not surprised. You can't keep him down. I started writing poetry in a serious way only in the last few years. And as Gunilla mentioned, it's a return to something that interested me as a boy, but that somehow I lost touch with. I hope it's not too late for me. I'm an old man. Certainly, I'm an aging man, but I'm a young poet. And I hope you'll bear that in mind as I share some poems tonight. There are 7 or 8 of them, depending on time. And 5 are from the forthcoming book titled Work Songs. And it features poems inspired in the main by the jobs that Gunilla mentioned. These are jobs I had as a kid and as a young man here in the Buffalo area. I was a worker at the Buffalo Zoo concession stand for Harry Lieros, if anybody remembers him. I was a butcher's helper, a taxi cab driver, a short order cook, a DJ at a failing disco. This book will be out from Finishing Line Press in the early part of next year, and I'll be back to promote it. There'll be merchandise, hats, t-shirts. You'll all buy several copies of it, I'm sure. Some of these poems are lighthearted. Some of them are sober. Here we go. The first is titled Praise Song. In structure and style, it's inspired by Robert Alter's translation of the biblical Psalms. And it's the first poem in the book, and it tees up the work songs that follow. Praise Song. Praise the first job for what it has taught you, the basic life stuff. More important, the lesson in decoding the essential self. Praise the fun those wearisome tasks created, the camaraderie and friendship forged while stacking racks of hot dog buns, or risking the boss's ire by misplacing the new shipment of ice cream. Sing the reliable drudgery and dreariness of sweeping and mopping. Exalt the freedom of mindless repetition prepping the grill that respited school and home life and everything. Praise the bodily insult of early morning rising, the youthful pride in learning to make change fast and accurate. Chant the first joyful feeling of I am responsible. Praise cleaning machinery on heatless, cold spring mornings when it seemed as if the sun had died 7 billion years ahead of schedule, plunging the world into total darkness. Lift voices to the new girl who joined the crew, to jukebox dancing until 2 at Circus by the Sea, and hey, Bill, let me drive the Camaro. Praise those tasks that shape the young and formless heart. Praise the first paycheck and pocket money, the first job fired from, the first job quit. Praise it all and be glad for the work. Butcher Boy is the next poem. Some of you may be familiar with it. Apologies for being repetitious. The day drops in another purple-gray sky. Headlights blink, tires spin in late winter mank. The butchers, brothers banter through the afternoon about cars, dancers, money-making schemes. Their assistant, a war survivor given to fits, enraged by late orders from old ladies, spits in the chopped meat, smokes it off in the back room with copies of Legman. I am good with pickling tongue. I cut them thin on the slicer, steal a taste. Otherwise, it's sweep and clean, take inventory, dress chickens, wrap a brick roast, sometimes drive a special order, sit on the counter, waken but dulled and dreaming. On break, I perch there, listen to the brothers as they mutter about the imperium of the oil cartel, the president's gimmicky call-in radio show, exclaim the virtues of women they say they've known, detail the cars they've owned and driven. One curses the chicken man at the warehouse for bollocksing an order, a daily right. The other hymns a neighborhood legend for his skill at cards, romance, business deals. They honor their fathers by getting orders out to shut-ins after closing, light candles alone in a storm, knowing there will be no reward, that moving cases of black market liquor, tires, food stamps in bulk is the only way to keep the lease, stay in the game. A brief squall peppers the spreading dusk, adds to the slush clogging the avenue that draws the city's ragged margin, sinking under the weight of snow and the announcements of more job cuts, Buffalo Forge, Republic Steel, urban milling. The dirty snow liquefies in the heat of truck wheels, fissile material in an unstable world, form small mountains that explode and reform, all gone soon enough, all gone. Does anyone remember Gleason's restaurant at Main and High Streets? Yes? Do you remember its signature dish, the California burger? I don't know what made it a California burger. It had like Russian dressing or, with, extra something in it. I worked there in the summer of 1980, and it was a time in my life where I was more interested in the street life of Allentown. I was absolutely entranced with the romance of downtown, of urban grit. And of course, I didn't see it with clear eyes. I was, 20 years old. The job was awful, but I loved being down there until I finally couldn't take it anymore and I quit. The next poem is inspired by that experience, and a couple of footnotes just perhaps to make it easier to hear the poem. It references Charon, right, the mythological ferryman who ferried souls across the river Styx to Hades. And it references 2 pop songs or 2 pop groups, the Drifters, who sang Under the Boardwalk, among other great hits, and perhaps some more obscure singer of that period of the early 60s, Evie Sands. So this is the poem. It's Jackie's California Diner at Main and High, and it quotes the rock group Mink DeVille with a lyric that says, "Falling over my feet, I'll follow you all the way to High Street." The hot corner where the world comes to meet its wants and needs, the bus stop, a portal to another sphere, perhaps something new for Charon. In the diner, Bill the old cook shows me, 3 weeks on the job, how to fold an omelet in a square. A malcontent, he doesn't like tradition. Jim, mustachioed manager, disco shirt, top button unbuttoned, is counting receipts when a city cop orders coffee to go from Barb, pretty and round. He leans on the counter so he can look straight in her eyes, says they found blood on the wall of the sleep lodge next door, but no body. Everyone crosses here. Doctors, lawyers, hustlers, the TV bar and the hoodlum bar, the biker bar, all quiet. Only the bar favored by the printers union is open because 3 shifts and they don't go home. In my head, the drifters, Evie Sands, easy, silent, I work the grill. This next is titled Disc Jockey Agonistes. I told you I had a show on the college station, spun records for 3 nights at Gabriel's. You said, most definitely, I can use you. We need to bring the crowds back from the boulevard. You said I could play what I want, just keep it lively. More rock than disco, but still some disco, but mostly rock. That's what you said. I said, sure, this place is legendary. You said, just bring the crowds, tell your friends, jack it up, get it going. Of course, no one came. Pizza and wings happy hour specials attracted malingerers, the clumps of guys who drifted along the avenue from bar to bar. The gaggles of turned-out girls never showed. The glamour or whatever had migrated. It was no longer a cool place, and it never would be again. I don't blame you for getting nervous, but running into the booth every 20 minutes, shouting, play more rock, no, play more disco, it didn't help. Your punk brother and his pals sitting in the corner, making wisecracks, yodeling like Slim Whitman, that was counterproductive. Time to go, we both knew it, the one signal that didn't get crossed. Okay, although not a work poem, this next is included in the book. It's a road poem. It's inspired by the work of Richard Hugo, one of the very best modern American poets, and a master of the road poem. It's titled Saratoga Road. Saratoga Road. This is the delight urban planners must dream. The massive flow of cars, trucks, RVs over unimpeded supercourses, interconnecting highways, stretching the Grand Trunk Road from Kabul to Calcutta, Boston to Seattle, across the region, the nation, everyone busily moving like ants, of course, purposeful, or small tributaries and larger streams flowing into one great efflux, toward the sea, spreading commerce, alluvial riches, subversive ideas, creative destruction. Like the 4x4 pulling the sporty motorboat down from the Adirondack Lakes that didn't manage the interchange, slipped now from the trailer, ass end in the verge. New transactions will unfold. Tow truck, mechanic, hotel, restaurant, souvenirs, dropping down from the north, following cracking thunderheads, sailing above the spruce, sugar maples, the yellow birch, signs for the Mohican Motor Lodge, Fort Henry reenactments, Lost Cause racetrack, the Tiki Lounge, Six Flags and the Dairy Bar. Racing toward the hills of Troy, a light in the faltered suburbs of innovation's diminishing campus. On the right, the old defeated capital, defiant in its ill-favored grime, its odor of deal-making as old as the first Dutch trading post. Pressing on to the Hudson Valley, the volume reduced to county roads, but still surging in all directions. An air of rural ease, the pleasant nose of late summer, crops in the field, the farms and meadows not yet choked, but well ringed by shopping malls, hipster renovation, gas and go marts. A quick stop at Stewart's across from Hackett's Farm Supply, coffee and a sweet to fuel the last leg into Connecticut. Charles Ives tone clusters heralding a return to New England myth-making, gazebo-centered towns, spectral realities enfolding, home to the briny coast. Travel done for now, the trunk road awaits. Orange cones, 2 a.m. floodlights, go. I'm going to change the order of things here just a little bit. I have 3 more poems to read. They are not from the book. One of them is actually precedes the book before it was written, before it was sent to the publisher. Maybe it will appear in another book. The other 2 were written after Work Songs was sent to the publisher. So they're kind of new. They're new. They're not kind of new, they're new. How about that? So this next poem is a kind of tribute to another poet, Dick Allen. Has anybody heard of Dick Allen? Any poets know of Dick Allen? Dick Allen was from upstate, from Saratoga County, where my family and I lived for a number of years, but I didn't know about him until I moved back to Connecticut. He's a marvelous poet, an American Zen poet with a cranky attitude and a focus on everyday life and everyday people. There's nothing really fancy about Dick Allen. Dick Allen has a poem, a long poem, I forget the exact title, it may be called American Zen. Anyway, in the middle of it, he quotes a Chinese poet from the 10th century. And he says, if you meet a master swordsman, show him your sword. If you meet someone who is not a poet, don't show him your poems. Anyway, Dick Allen is a marvelous poet. He's an upstate New York poet. He was the poet laureate of Connecticut for a time, and he writes beautifully about everyday life. My poem, inspired by Dick Allen, is titled Interrupted Wedding on a Warm Summer Night in a Small River Town Upstate. Alarm ringing from the neighboring hotel, we wend easily from the brick factory turned banquet hall, guided by fireflies. No panic. Beside us, the silent broad lawn, mowed grass, balmy. The calm river sliding through its bend like a magic serpent, conferring power and grace, a dragon of good fortune. As smiling servers offer glasses and pour wine, the thrumming chatter and our flashing laughter join immortal crosstalk. All the great parties that ever were must have been like this, slow and easy, gliding steps, poised footfalls along a gardened walk. An unhurried call to return ripples easily among the guests. No announcements or bells. Wives and husbands, romantic couples, snake under a bower through double doors. What movie is this? Which ancient city? Playfully, they offer Hitchcock, Fellini, Nice, or Rome, a courtyard in Ferrara. Dinner is served in the glowing hall. The servers, everyone smiling. Lights low, the band plays a joyful samba. Soon the dancing will start. The night will expand with the universe, gesture toward forever, like the soft flowing river, the wholehearted lights of the town. I had dinner with my Aunt Joan and Uncle Mike, who are in the audience here, about a month or so ago, and told them I was doing this. And my marvelous Aunt Joni said, "That is so exciting. Do any of your poems rhyme?" I said, yes, some of them do. And so this next one has some rhymes and some so-called slant rhymes or off rhymes, and I want to dedicate it to my wonderful Aunt Joan. This is for you. It's called Mexican Girl with Guitar. Bravely, a teenage girl sings outside the bakery with only a guitar, and for her stage light, street lamps and stars. She has little obvious beauty compared to the surfing girls and well-dressed tourists. Doesn't sport skin-tight micro trunks or Manolo Blahniks. Her dress is cheaply gotten, bright colors and plastic buttons. Her blemished cheeks are dotted. Her body presses heavily against cotton. But when she strums her small guitar, all the tourists wonder where that sweet voice is coming from, singing of the moon, yearning for the sun. The surfing girls slow their gait. They know competition when they see it. Into a box, passers-by throw coins. Two young policia stop to see what's drawn this crowd. To her own music, she moves with grace and dignity, this prettiest of girls beside the sea. Okay. We're at the end. This last is inspired by a strange discovery found in the archives of the novelist and short story writer Isaac Bashevis Singer. Singer was thought to be hostile to religion, but about 5 years ago, a researcher going through his papers at a Texas university found a rent receipt for his Manhattan apartment. Extraordinarily, I mean, the amount of the rent was incredible. It was, whatever it was, $125, $50, or something so mind-blowing I couldn't remember it, for an apartment on Central Park West in Manhattan. And on the back of this receipt, Singer had written an appeal to the master of the universe, written in the formal Orthodox Jewish style of pre-war Eastern Europe. My poem is inspired by Singer's prayer. It's titled "Do Not Recede." Excuse me. Do not recede, after Isaac Bashevis Singer. Receiver of prayers, do not recede into black holes, wormholes, bending folds in space. Do not reduce us to neurons, algorithms, code. Remove the dull film of blindered scientism, rigid thought systems, superficial lists, rushed conclusions, false certainties through which we see the world more dimly than our ancestors. Reverse in us a turned sense of wonder at stars, oceans, mountains, all living things. The snow owl that alighted, wings aloft on the roadside at dusk when we were lost. The net pulled from the lilac pond, brimming, creatures wriggling through our fingers, nipping our flesh. Restore in us amazement at ourselves, each other, the beauty of our form, the lightning bolt of connection through a joke, a gesture, good talk. Return grandeur to creation, a deserving crown to our heads. Reject the daily news, despair, loneliness, the overload, the all too much. Give us language to express our miraculous circumstance, to recount the mystery of our existence, unique in the cosmos as far as we know, sacred so long as we insist. Here among the billions, grown from the same extraordinary seed, dependent on honor and hope, chancing astonishment at what we have been given. Be there not receding. Thank you very much. Oh. All right, Zoom friends, thank you very much. You are my posse. I depend on you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you all who are here on Zoom or in person. Usually at this point, we invite everybody from the audience for a brief question and answer. So if you have anything you would like to ask either one of our featured readers tonight, now is the time.
I can ask you.
Why don't the readers come up here, and that way you can answer.
I could ask John anytime because he's probably one of my best friends. But I want to know where was the disco that you were DJing? Well, all right. Look, first, these poems are not strictly memoir, right? So they are not. They have narrative qualities to them. They have memoiristic qualities to them. But I've taken a lot of liberties. So in the interest of the poem, however it was developing and trying to make it interesting, I've conflated people and identities. I've mashed time and events together. Things are not exactly as history would show them. However, I did work one summer at the Elmwood Village, where you were bidden to go up to get down. It was an upstairs disco above the pizzeria. Yeah, and it was just a collapsing enterprise when they hired me. And the repartee with the owner about play more rock, play more disco, that's the verisimilitude factor is high with that.
It works.
Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Butcher shop intrigued me.
Yeah.
What job was that?
I'm not going to speak directly to that.
I didn't know about that one.
I don't, names are changed to protect the innocent.
Okay, thank you.
Let me say that. But I'm sure you bought chopped meat from that butcher.
I know.
About a month ago. Oh, yes, very much. Yes, I am aware of the tragic end of the old Pink. Yeah.
John was good friends with the guy.
Yeah, I knew Mark Supples pretty well. I went to school with him, and I drank. I gave him good custom in the old Pink back in the day. Yeah. Sorry to see it go.
Anybody online have a question? If they can't hear, would you repeat? Anybody online?
Does anybody online have a question for Celeste or for me? Perhaps Daniel can help facilitate that if there's a question. Okay. All right. Well, Celeste, let me ask you a question, if I may. So, as a poet trying to learn this craft, I'm interested to know how often do you write? Do you write every day? Do you write every week? What's your writing practice?
You want to embarrass me in public?
Yes. You wait for the muse to light on your shoulder and whisper in your ear? That's legit.
I kind of write when I can. The last few years it's been kind of difficult because I've had so many personal obligations. But when something hits me, I just try to write it on anything. So I have a stack of envelopes, napkins, Post-its, and then just try to keep them together. I should have a routine. Master writers say have a routine. But I live with an 8th grader, an 8th grade boy.
That'll blow up any routine.
Yeah, so that guides whenever I have peace of mind. September 9th actually was the birthday of a poet that I admire tremendously, Sonia Sanchez. And they did a 90th birthday party for her in Harlem. And poets from everywhere came. So I wanted to write my own tribute. So I started that, and it's on 3 or 4 envelopes, it's on 2 or 3 post-its. So as I think of a line, I write it down, and then sort of, or, you know, you have a flash, you have those moments
Mm-hmm.
where you just sit and you write and it's
Mhm,
done, and you
mhm.
don't know where it came from,
Mhm.
and how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a good example.
Okay, you're a great example. You're a great example.
Good to see you, good to see you.
Last year I attended this remarkable play you had done relating
I'm living in Sarasota, and I wanted to make a comment to Celeste.
students talking in the background on Zoom.
Yes, hi, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I love your poetry, I love the rhythm of it. And what moved me the most tonight was the poem about your mother.
Thank you.
I've been in that condominium, and she was an inspiration. She was strong and talented and sweet,
Yeah.
kind, and I miss her. So it was good to hear a poem about her place and her energy that was in that place,
Thank you.
and her tchotchkes.
Yes,
And
we,
yeah, it was wonderful to remember her in that way. But your poetry is like a melody. It's really beautiful, Celeste.
well, thank you.
So blessed to have this in a Zoom, because I don't come to Buffalo very often anymore.
No, no. Well, thank Ganilla and Dan, they made this possible. And I appreciate your thoughtful and kind words. You're a dear friend, I love you dearly. Thank you. Thanks.
So, you have another question, Celeste?
So when I write, I find that sometimes my poems thinking might be stories, and sometimes my class fiction thinking might be poems. And they can't decide. And I have versions of the same writing,
Yeah.
which is in both forms.
Yes, yes.
So I attended this wonderful play, Moby Dick thing you did last year.
Yes.
And I wonder, and it occurred to me, does that kind of thing ever interfere with your writing poetry or the reverse?
Okay, that's an interesting, the way that came together was in 2 phases. The first one was an invitation, actually, well, with David, to go to a workshop of Sherry Robbins' book, Or the Whale, where she had written 1 poem for each chapter of Moby Dick. And the challenge was to poets was to respond to some of those poems. And at that point, I decided I wanted to just change that. In other words, my Moby was a female, and so I wrote in response, my response from the whale's point of view, not from any crew member. And then structure came about when I listened to Scott Momaday, rest in peace, the native poem. And he said at his talk at Babel that many poets think they're writing poetry, but it's really prose laid out on the page to look like poetry. And my hair went out. I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm one of those people. And so I went about learning how to write poems in various structures. So I took my free verse and then went into sonnet or a villanelle or haiku or say, whatever that script, how that developed. So I think I'm kind of deliberate in that sense. I mean, you have a great mind for so many things, so I could see where you would, you know, be on the racetrack in a little different way. But that's it. If I sit down to try to do something, then I'm focused on that something. And I do have poems that I tried to make good, and they just weren't any good. So they just have to go in the, oh, I'm so sad bag. But that's it.
This is a real challenge,
Yeah.
absolutely a challenge, to keep your poetry from tipping into narrative and story. It's hard, but it's a good struggle.
Well, there is narrative poetry.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Even worse.
It makes it even worse, it's true.
Yeah, yeah, you do have to figure that one out, and so I'll fall back on structure when I get confused about anything, yeah. So. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts? Thank you so much, both Celeste and Jonathan. Thank you. I did want to mention, for those of us who are Jewish, October is a very busy month with all the high holy days. I'm not going to enumerate them here right now. But because of that, we are doing the Buffalo Corner in October on Zoom only. That there was trouble getting, I don't know why every Jewish holiday in October has to fall on a Thursday, but it seems to be the case. So if there's any trouble, I'll send out the Zoom link as usual. I have invited 2 younger women poets from Boston, whom I have followed their writing for quite some time, and I think it will be a fabulous evening. And they did suggest coming down here, but now it's going to be on Zoom only. So, just so you know. I'm sorry? The date, yeah, that's what I don't know. The day of Sukkot, second day of Sukkot is a Thursday. You tell me, because Yom Kippur is on the 11th, and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, yeah, 17th. Thank you. Please join us on Zoom. Or you're welcome to come here, but I won't be here, is my guess. I was really struck by the 2 poets we have heard tonight, the difference in the way they write. Like Jonathan, I feel the rhythm, there's the beat, there's something moving, and with Celeste there's melody and dance and phrases. So it's like listening to 2 very different types of music. Those of you who know me know I play classical guitar, and so I know a lot about phrasing and some few things about rhythm. But I thought that was really interesting mix here tonight. Do you agree? It was not something I knew about before I met you. So I brought 2 poems just to close the evening. And the first is called 2 Languages. What is it like, she wants to know, to have 2 languages? Born with 2 hands, air in between. 2 homes to leave. Fill a heart 2 times. Empty it twice. And this is a new poem about it was somebody suggested we should write a poem about a part of a painting that's kind of not central to the painting, right? I've never written about a painting before, so this was my first. It was just written a few weeks ago. It's called It Brings a Perspective. the most scandalous ingredient of this famously scandalous painting, bought by the state of Franz Joseph I, even before it was finished, so goes the story, and hung in its narrow, tall frame in the capital's most admired museum, a building competing with the palace itself, and as dusty, if you ask me, overlooking a sun-basted square filled with the dry heat of the Emperor of Austria, King of Hungary, the ruler of all the states and cities of the Habsburg monarchy, including Spain and Bohemia. Its most scandalous feature is not the cheeky scene it portrays, the famous kiss. The man's face invisible, her leg lifted, foot stretched, toes bending, his hands holding her face, a radiant gem, as brilliant as the gold leaf background mixed with silver leaf and flat without perspective, as is true of such ecstasy that tends to erase background and belonging. But the bitter, pervasive rumor, nowhere confirmed yet trailing the rich artwork, that the artist used not just gold and oil to create the luscious, luminous surface, but included a most plebeian component, and not, as one would assume, in the background, but in the very varnish that covers the whole canvas. He mixed in amber dust and cat piss. Thank you all so much for coming. Please join us again via Zoom, or please come here. Now we have these fancy chairs, but in October it will be on Zoom only. And if anybody is not on the email list for the Buffalo Corner and you would like to receive once a month the Zoom link and the invite, please come up here and put your email here. Some of you have sent me your email this summer. I've been in and out of Buffalo. I'm a little slow in getting into it and getting back on track, but I will. And so just put your name and email here if you wish. And thank you again, Jonathan, Celeste, Joanne, Rabbi. Did you want to say something? Bernice, you need to come back too. When you have time, I know you're a busy lady. Thank you and good night.
Gunilla, thank you so much. I enjoyed that so much.
Where did we put? Oh, here's a pen.
This is the email thing. Yeah.
Please, yes. Yeah, better keep that. I'm very good at stealing people's. I'm a kleptomaniac when it comes to pens. So.
We have early